Hi there. Yeah, this one's going to be a short one. A little less to do with the art today. It's about an issue. I think you'll get the point. This will be a short one. Just going to rattle on and hopefully you can figure out where I'm going with this. Because there's nobody home. Okay. See what we got here? Anyone recognize this? Anyone that's worked in warehouses or that sort of thing? Dealt with logistics? What's your basic standard plastic wrap used to wrap skids? Usually about waist high, the skids themselves, you know. What are they, 4x4, 5x4 skids? This sort of thing. If they're higher, but within 8 feet, of course the wrap would extend that far, usually with lighter boxes, that sort of thing. But before items are shipped out of a warehouse, the skids and the products are wrapped up in this stuff. Okay? Well, this I found on the roadside, and I've been seeing a lot more of it. I don't know what's going on out there, but sometimes I guess people lose their loads. Things on the back of trucks somehow get discarded, blown up. Who knows? But they end up there. Anyway, I found it. I'm gonna be, I'll throw this in the recycling bin or whatever and find a place for it. But before I saw this on the roadside and I thought I'd give this some thought and just mention something here, okay? Okay. Well, you see this ball, right? Let me just scrunch this up, knot it up. Now we're looking at something solid, right? Okay. Now, this is not going to really be news to someone who's worked in a warehouse or worked in shipping around the loading docks, that kind of thing. It's going to be nothing new. But it's time to realize something, Sally and Greta, that we have to face some facts here. Okay? Now, first let me tell you about the real horror of this item here. Okay? Now, the last warehouse I worked in, up until about, autumn of 2019. Actually, I was working on the road at the time, but I do some work in the warehouses and use the wrapper to wrap skids and that sort of thing. And umpteen skids went out the door daily. You understand? Just rows and rows of it. Okay? And they're all wrapped in this stuff. Now, when that wrap's taken off, it's not just discarded in its destination. It's brought back with us, usually the case, and it's rolled up into balls, right? Well, let me tell you something. This ball is nothing. By the end of it, when you roll it all up, you get like balls, just below your waist, right? And I'd see this sometimes in the instances where I'd be back in the warehouse, getting ready to punch out or go home or whatever, where towards the end of things, it was being rolled up into these, like I said, almost up to your waist, right? About this, almost up to your waist, about this high. These balls being thrown directly into gaylords and into dumpsters that would be taken away by waste management. No, waste management. Not recycled. I'm talking waste management. I want you to think about that now. Balls of this stuff. hay bales of it. You get my meaning? Do you understand? Now, where am I going with this? Am I here to do a environmental rant and stuff? No, actually, what I'm here to say is this. I'm not going... Like, the view is so polarized these days, it's sickening. And how people can be so stupid on either side, I don't know. Stupid in the sense where people are denying that there's a problem with global warming. Yeah, we used to call it global warming. Now we call it climate change. People that are denying that, it's ridiculous, okay? But also, the people that are generating this environmental outcry, the Gretas of the world, the bored housewives of the world, going around with their reusable shopping bags thinking they're making a fucking dent, it's equally ridiculous. What I would suggest is that we first have to come to terms with the real problems before we take action. We're too busy taking action against each other, arguing the points back and forth. Now, what I'm getting at is that if people understood that whether through manufacturing, distribution from warehouses around the country. Now, let me clarify something again about this. Like I said, waist high bowls in waste management daily. Now that's just one warehouse in North America, just one, but daily. Filling these dumps. Oh well, what do we have? We had 4 large dumpsters in our particular warehouse, okay? And they'd be filled with this stuff. What I'm getting at is if people realized what is being consistently put into landfill daily, folks, they wouldn't be worried about plastic bags that are 2 to 3 thousandths of an inch thick. Well, what am I saying? Don't do that. Don't recycle and don't get rid of the plastic because you know it's not. I'm saying I don't think people fully realize that this idea with the bags, for example, is just a fucking virtue signal. It is not making a dent. It is not. It's making people feel better. Not all people, but it's like, can I have my bag back, please? Like, it's a virtue signal. And they want you to care about it. And you better show that you care, because that's what's important. I thought what was important was finding a solution to some of these problems. You know what I mean? We know there are environmental issues. We know there are concerns concerning plastics. Sure. Okay? We know that. Our governments know that. But they also know that the legislation they pass and these ridiculous codes that the Liberal Party since 2015 have been trying to push are just a waste of time. It's a virtue signal. It's paying attention to the people's complaints, but providing actions that do no fucking good. Now I want you to think about something. First question. What was it? 2 years ago? 3 years ago? How long has it been? I don't even know. Local supermarkets, basically some of the last, not the last, but they finally got rid of plastic shopping bags, right? 2 to 3 thou thick. 2 to 3 thousandths of an inch thick. Compare that with this, okay? Now listen. They got rid of it. And some stores, not the shopping centers themselves, but the other stores, like say certain bookstore chains, for example, they started using paper bags, right? I want you to really consider this one. Paper bags. This is good. They used paper bags as a replacement. I don't know if you remember, but some of them, they'd come with like a paper strap, and the strap would fucking rip, and they were shit, right? But they did that. And I remember walking into one of the bookstores. I picked something up, and I was in and out, but I said, "Can I get a bag with that?" And she gave me a paper bag, and I said, "Oh, they're paper." And she's like, "No one uses plastic bags anymore." She was virtue signaling, right? And trying to tell me something. And in fact, at that time, that was not true. There was a particular drugstore that was still using plastic bags, and there were um, there were a handful of people that still hadn't gotten on board yet. And I wasn't going to argue, but I just thought about that, and I started really thinking about that. My walk home from there, thinking about paper and plastic and all that. It's such a fucking joke. You know, I heard someone saying it was the old Gen Z, Gen X tension that cropped up earlier this year, but someone was saying, "Who says Gen X? Why should Gen X be off the hook concerning the environment?" Well, let me just say something about that. I don't think anyone should be off the hook. You know, it's everyone's responsibility and all that. But when you start talking about Gen X and the environment, try to remember something. We were the fucking ones that ushered in a fucking blue box in the first place. We were the ones that pressured fast food chains to change their styrofoam packaging into thin paper. You know? Do you remember that? You know, McDonald's, for example, they used to use styrofoam for their Big Macs, etc. I don't know, a lot of you are, you know, if you're old enough to remember, that's what they did. And we made those pressures. And everyone's so fucking concerned about plastic bags. Let me ask these households, let me ask these people, are you guys using biodegradable garbage bags? Biodegradable garbage bags. Because we fucking were. I remember 1989. I mean, you could go in and, you know, they were brown. Now, they were weaker, so you had to be careful. If you punctured one, it would split or whatever. But they were biodegradable. They basically, after a succession of moisture or rainfalls and stuff, they basically dissolve. They melt away until there's nothing left of them. Biodegradable garbage bags. So if you're talking about garbage and landfill, wouldn't it make sense to use biodegradable bags? Oh, but there's one problem. Probably most of the stuff in your garbage was more harmful and would take up more space than the fucking bag itself. Again, we're talking about 3 thou thick. It's the absurdity of it. But it gets better. It gets better. Let me tell you about Generation X. Something we remember. Now remember, let's get back to the question. Why were grocery bags in the grocery stores, plastic bags, removed? It was an environmental issue, right? Correct? Isn't that right? Yeah. We as Canadians, as that penis with ears would say it. Yeah. Okay, just keep that in mind. It was an environmental issue. So we'll switch out plastic bags and give everyone reusable bags. Now, okay, that's fine. And some of the stores would say, we'll use paper bags. Brown paper bags, recycled, mind you, paper bags. Now let's get back to Generation X. Anyone old enough to know who is Generation X? I don't know, maybe, what... I want you to think back to, let's say, between 79 and, say, early 1982-ish, 81. I was living out on the West Coast at that time as a kid. And I want you to remember grocery day, right? When either your mom or your dad went grocery shopping, right? Sometimes it would be mom coming back with a cab, or both of your parents would go out and do it and come back. But I remember being 9, 10, 11 years old, and my job was when they got to the fucking door with the grocery bags, they just open the door and lay them out on the floor right there. And my job was to take them into the kitchen and the pantry and put them in their selected, spots, right? Put things in the fridge, put cans in the pantry, etc., 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 right? And then I could go do my thing. I was just expected to do that, right? As they loaded them in. Yeah. Yeah, it's a nice little memory, a nice little story. But guess what? The grocery bags were fucking paper. You fucking reading me, Gen Z? They were paper. But shortly thereafter, your government, my government, decided they were going to switch to plastic bags. Why? You know why? What was the reason we took plastic bags away? Environmental concerns. What was the reason they took paper bags away? Environmental concerns. It had to do with pulping and trees. Let that sink in. It's bullshit, folks. It's always been bullshit. It's a no-win situation. They know it. And when it comes to fucking landfill, if the average citizen knew what was going into landfill on a daily basis, they wouldn't be worried about their fucking grocery bags. They'd be screaming their lungs out. But a lot of people already know it. They just don't think about it. But who do you blame? Who are the biggest offenders out there? Right? You have warehouses, distribution, facility after facility, depending on waste management to carry something away from them. You know what they're really carrying away from them? Their conscience. And a lot of it's backed, I'm just going to say it, by organized crime. It has been for fucking years. Do you think your concerns are their concerns? You think it's all the same? And let's talk about charity organizations. Thrift stores. Do you know how much donated material goes into dumpsters on a weekly basis? Directly delivered to landfill? If you fucking knew these things, you would not be worried about your fucking plastic bags. What am I saying? Oh, give up the whole plastic bag thing? No, not really. But think of the things that have just been discussed. Wouldn't it make sense? Would it not make sense? Think of everything discussed now in this short rant. We had biodegradable plastic bags, folks. They were on the market. You could go in the supermarket and buy them. You probably still can, I imagine. It's just not a very popular thing. Don't you find that fucking weird?
Especially from the people who decide that, you know, they have to use a reusable bag and they won't use plastic bags from a grocery store ever. And oh my goodness, those are the same people that don't use recycled fucking garbage bags that they put on their curb weekly. Give me a break. Something wrong there. What about recycled bags in the grocery stores? You know, paper bags are out because of the trees, you know, pulping, all that, right? Even if they are recycled, you know, give me a break. It's a fucking scam, people. And the people that keep it a scam, you don't want to know about. You don't want to know about. Hey, I was born with eyes. I looked, I saw. Some ears I could hear. These fuckers carry away the nation's conscience. They do your dirty work for you, you fucking environmentalist idiots. And they're going to keep doing it. Because it's big, big money. And the solution in the grocery stores would seem to me to be recycled bags. That's it. Clear and simple. Why not? Why not? Would work perfectly. And as far as the environment goes and the increasing methane, I read an article, what was it? A few months ago, they're looking at cattle feed, things to promote a decrease in methane amongst cattle. You understand? Sounds like a good idea, right? Decrease methane, which will decrease the potential for global warming. But there's one thing they do not attach to these environmental concerns, I notice. It's the thing they ignored since the alarm bell went off in the late 50s, early 60s. Yeah, methane, by the way, that's the gas emitted. It's an emission from a cow's ass. You understand? When they fart. Right? What, we don't fucking fart? People, wake up. Wake the fuck up. The alarm bell went off when we were 2.3 billion in the early 60s. Right? And the predictions that some of the greatest minds made about an acceleration of exponential growth had been exceeded in the 2000 decade. They did. It was worse. A lot of things were predicted back then. We just lived 2.5 generations, as though these things didn't exist. Why? How do we get so fucking distracted? You know, what was it now? But a little over a year ago, we hit 8 billion. In 2011, we hit 7 billion. And that was supposed to, hello? What does that mean? Someone asked me. She was going on about the government, and I said, well, this is a factor people should... What does that mean? What's that mean? Like, as though it doesn't mean anything. Well, what it meant, and what it means, Princess, is that in 13 fucking years alone, the overall population grew 1/8 of its total. 1/8 of the total population was generated in the last 13 fucking years alone. That's fucking insane. And all these issues, there's so many of them, and the environmental one is only one of them, are just going to increase, and we're going to be constantly distracted by other things. And most people are just going to give themselves over to a more comfortable way of living. You know, anything for comfort and convenience. Cash is going to be out soon. You're going to regret that. Oh, you're going to regret that. They're already on the move with that shit. But this thing with population is the thing they've always ignored. And not too many elected officials want to deal with population either. And you know why? You want to know why? One of the main reasons? As they blow a bullhorn on the other side of the world telling people, come to Canada. You know, prosperity and opportunity just awaits you, right? And then they get here and they're like, what the hell is this, right? Well, the reason they don't want to talk about population is, well, it comes down to a variance in opinions concerning what is... It comes down to standards of living. What's appropriate, what's comfortable. You know, some people come from places around the world where they're used to crowding. Crowding does not bother them. No. Crowding is going to bother, well, the proverbial us. And you can't... Look, when you're talking about a population crisis, there's only one solution, isn't there? Let me explain, don't get crazy, that the problem doesn't dissipate until the population dissipates, if you get my meaning. You know, it has to... In other words, it has to be lowered. Now, obviously, a civilized... yeah, civilized, that's good. Society isn't going to resort to removing people. Let's just take comfort and take a leap of faith and believe that bullshit, okay? So, what would be the next thing to consider? Well, that would be future programs where families would say, you know, would have to consider not having large families of children. But no, you can't tell any family that. It's their God-given right. No one, so look at what are they trying to do? In fact, their own governments will tell them the opposite. They'll tell them the opposite. Now, this is where it gets tricky. They'll tell you things like, in North America, we may not be in a position where we can replace ourselves. We're having less children, etc., etc. There's going to be a massive decrease in population. Oh yeah, there is. But it ain't going to be from a lack of fucking, I can tell you that much. Illegitimate child after illegitimate child after illegitimate child. And that kind of thing gets passed on from generation to generation. Don't ask me why. Right? Some sort of neuroses gets passed on. It's just weird. And those kind of chains have to be broken. That's a totally different subject. But they'll tell you things like, there's going to be a decrease in the population, and so North America need to start having more children, blah, 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 blah. But watch the North American part. Which North Americans? Ooh, dangerous question, right? Then it gets divisive, right? Create the... Looking into things like that, just probing that becomes a matter of division, you know? You're pointing the finger at something. You know, in a way, without even pointing the finger, just saying this as plainly as possible. no elected official's gonna come in and tell people that they're gonna have to start considering, you know, having less children. Because you know why? If they tell certain people that, they'd have to tell the fucking third world that. And when I say the third world, I mean as it exists in its native land and as it comes in as landed immigrants. But you see, they're lying to those people as well as people who have been here 4 and 5 generations. They're getting you concerned with the wrong shit. And society's becoming this fucking mental patient where they find that the only solution is to feel better and be polite to one another. We're talking about massive populations that are being crammed together, and all this legislations concerning political correctness, which is at heart, in essence, a good thing, and all these new legislation concerning conduct and speech, concerning gender and identity, and like I say, general codes of speech. All of this is coming from what they see as coming. Masses of people being jammed together. What do you think the results of that's going to be? Really? Realistically? Harmony? You're gonna get fucking people that won't even come to their door if it's knocked upon. You're gonna have people that are gonna sit in their homes and just fucking order food. Look, there's already all kinds of things that are happening socially. That's not really the issue. But what I'm saying is a lot of these changes and these new concerns that people have been debating about for the last 20 years, they were expected. And that a lot of the new legislation isn't just to promote peace of mind for the basket cases out there on fucking antidepressants, trying to kiss everyone's ass and be so polite and nice because they think that's the answer, right? It's a matter of love and hate, when really, no, it's not. You're forced into a social situation like that because people are going to go right off the fucking rails if you don't. And that's what happens quite a bit. We saw how ridiculous it's gotten. But, by 2009, The Economist already knew, like, take the United States, for example, that they were in shit up to their neck. And that basically, they're just barely, they're not, they'd look at their national debt, and they realized that they were just basically keeping up with the interest payments. They knew there was a collapse coming. People think in terms of COVID and like that's the timeline before COVID and after COVID. Jesus Christ. How quickly people forget. The facelift that was taking place before COVID hit. Think about that 5 years, right? The decrease in portions of product while maintaining prices. Like guys like, what was his name? Stein was talking about the collapse of, the economy. They knew this was coming. Here's the thing about it. It always was preventable. It was possible to prevent these things, but it was never probable. It's population, folks. And all the things that ail mankind, that he thinks he's debating about, all those things are going to increase and intensify as the population increases. It's what it is. It's the bottom line. It's the thing that elected officials will not deal with. See, people look at it in terms of fringe problems being that, oh, it's all about immigration. And it's like, I get that. Yeah, you're losing your culture. No one can deny that. But at the same time, they're not looking at the overall problem. Because the overall problem will not be embraced and and proportionately dealt with by all peoples. Because all peoples don't look at such things the same way. Some people have no problem with crowds, and they plan on having lots of kids. It's the same shit. What are you supposed to do? Walk up to families and say, you can, you know, right? That's what China did, right? You can only have one child per family. Well, it didn't really necessarily help the cause. There were still too many fucking people. They're going to be finding all sorts of ways. Don't get me started on. We've already been through it. The things we found out about the vaccinations, for example, were, you know, the information that was being kicked around was just shocking. It was too shocking for some people to accept. And then in this country, we're being bombarded with the idea of misinformation. Misinformation this. You know. But did you notice that the people that were bullhorning that and talking about misinformation when these topics were being discussed would never give you a specific identification of any misinformation. Just call it misinformation. Not tell you what the misinformation was. Because they knew once you do that, once you specify, that title of the misinformation can be debated and looked at. But if you don't... Isn't that weird? Don't you find that strange? That the people that were trying to inform us and educate us about a pandemic that was taking place, don't you think they would be the ones that would be most concerned with misinformation? Yes, but not for the reasons you think. Right? If they were so concerned that the public know the truth, they would tell you what they believed was misinformation. Don't you think that's strange? They wouldn't tell you what that was? Kind of leads one to believe that what they'd like you to believe was misinformation was bullshit on their part. Or simply, they just didn't fucking know. What was important, it was that they control information. It's dictatorship, folks. It's dictatorship with a smile. A polite smile. A friendliness, because that's all that matters. Didn't they tell you? So, take it with a grain of salt. When you really think about it, though, what the fuck are you going to do about it? Do you at least want to get to the bottom of things? Figure out some real solutions? It's not like they don't have the real solutions. In many cases, they just want to keep you distracted away from those real solutions. They don't want shit to change. Especially the powers that be. The real fuckers running things. And all it takes for them to get their way is the thing they're after in the first place. Money.